Welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So today is a phenomenal day because I, Ryan, have been accepted into Rumble's small creator program. So all the hard work, all the hours of streaming has paid off, and I am officially in, which means I will be streaming a lot more. So you can expect to see me live every Monday through Saturday, at least 2 hours a night is the plan. So I'm gonna lock down my schedule officially with wifey and see what we can work out. But this is going to be the plan tentatively going forward, and I couldn't be more excited. This is something that I've been working toward for a long time since they started launching the small creators program, and it has since evolved into the Rumble's creator program, and I'm thrilled. I think this is great. It's an opportunity for smaller, lesser known creators to get eyeballs on their content, which is, I think, exactly what I need. So I'm just very grateful and appreciative for this opportunity. So I'm going to take full advantage of it and try to stream as much as possible. So you're going to get a variety of streams from me. It's not just going to be news, culture, commentary. We'll do some reaction videos. We'll do reading the Reddit threads, which I enjoy doing. My wife will probably join a couple of the shows. She did one recently, and we had a great time. Also be doing some gaming. So I'm trying to narrow down what exactly I'm going to play. So there's going to be a variety of things that I do, and I'm stoked. So one, for those of you who have been supporting me, I appreciate it. It's not lost on me. It's not something that I take for granted. I appreciate it. Sincerely, truly, I appreciate your help and support. Thank you. And let's continue to take the world by storm. So without further ado, though, we're just gonna get into things. We're just gonna start talking about the latest and crazy topics of the day. So we'll be covering Jordan Peterson's viral video with this smug kid. We'll also discuss Megyn Kelly's like 3 trans kids. Like, what are the odds of having 3 trans kids? I would say, if I were a gambling man, you'd have a better chance in getting struck by lightning. That's what I would say. And we will also be discussing the latest Lilo&Stitch movie because I have thoughts on that. And of course, as always, we will be covering AI related topics because that is something that we just need to keep talking about. We need to keep talking about it until we can't talk about it because our robot slaves don't want us to talk about it anymore. So all that today, more on RCAM. Now, if you like this content, please like, share, subscribe. Click that notification bell to stay notified every time we go live. And we go live every Monday through Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there will be some bonus streams. Okay, So let's just get into this first topic with Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson was recently featured on Jubilee, which is a well-established, I guess, debate-ish channel. That's what they're most prominently known for. I myself was on a Jubilee video, and it was an experience. And I kind of understand Jordan Peterson a little bit better having had that experience, because the format of Jubilee is not really designed for people who are long-winded in their responses or a little bit more thoughtful in their responses. You have to be very quick-witted and 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 rapid fire responses to really do well in a Jubilee episode. And Jordan Peterson, just by nature, is not he's not that type of guy. I'm not saying he can't be quick on his feet at times, but I think he is generally better at long form discussions and lecture style discussions, not these high intensity debates. I don't think that is his wheelhouse. He needs time to elaborate on a topic, to dissect and break down the meanings of different words. This is Jordan Peterson. This is who he is. So anyway, he goes on this debate and he debates this smarmy kid that you'll see, and he gets grilled on his Christian identity. And I will say this, I do think I was not thrilled with his lack of answer, but I do understand it. So let's play this and then we'll discuss.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
So that kid was I mean, listen, I'm not trying to carry water for Jordan Peterson, okay? But that guy going into the debate very clearly is not asking questions in good faith. He just isn't. You can tell by his demeanor, you can tell by his blatant disrespect that he's not asking good faith questions. I think Jordan may have been a little bit more responsive if he got an inkling that this guy was acting in good faith, but he's not. And you're not obligated to answer questions to people who are asking you questions in bad faith. And as somebody that is chronically online, I get asked quite a bit of bad faith questions. And my response is usually, I'm not answer. I just don't answer. I will not engage with you. I had this guy on my threads trying to get me to debate him. While he already set up the precedent that I'm like a misogynist, racist, all these things. Like he's already established that. He's already written me. Why am I going to talk to you? I've noticed. No, you're not gonna trick me. You're not gonna back me into a corner. You're not going to try to try to I guess defame me or speak negatively about me and represent my opinions in the most dishonest way possible. I would rather talk to a rock. All right, I'm not going to engage with somebody like that. And I think Jordan Peterson, I think that's what what he was picking up on was that this guy was insincere. He did not actually, he didn't care whether Jordan Peterson identified as a Christian or not. Now, it didn't help Jordan Peterson that this was such an easy answer. Honestly, if you identify with Christ, if you believe Jesus Christ is Lord, which I do believe Jordan Peterson has previously said, and I do believe I've played that video before of Jordan Peterson acknowledging that Jesus Christ is God. Let me see if I could pull that up real quick. Yeah, I distinctly remember him saying it before. Oh, all these videos are like 11 minutes. I was hoping I could just find one that's really quick. All right, I think.
What is the God you believe?
I think I got it. We'll see. I might not. we shall see. All right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I think we're good. All right.
What is the God you believe in?
That the claim that Christ is the embodiment of the prophet and the laws, I think that's true.
So you believe that Jesus was
God?
God?
Yeah, I'll give you a brief explanation of why. Christ takes the sins of the world onto himself. That means all the problems that there are his problem. Right. The idea there is that there's no difference between making that assumption and then actually beginning to address those problems. And there's no difference between that which best addresses the problems of mankind and the divine.
What is the God?
So he does acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord. He does. He recognizes that Jesus is God. So he very clearly establishes that. He now him identifying as a Christian. I mean, some people don't want to identify as a Christian, and not because they don't believe in Jesus, but because they don't believe in like modern Christianity. You know, I know some really faithful believers that simply don't like the label. They don't like it. Now, I personally, I own the label. I think we should own it. I know Christians was originally used as kind of like an insult, but I think, you know, I identify with Christ. I'm a follower of Christ. That's what it means to be a Christian, is to identify and follow Jesus. So that's what I do. So ultimately, I do think he should have just answered and said, yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, sure. You know, what does that mean exactly? Well, give me a chance to explain. But I don't think this guy sincerely cared one way or the other. This guy only cared for that clip that you just saw. He cared about farming that little clip to get the clicks, to generate views, and for all the people to, you know, rally aside. Now, something that bothers me, and I've stated this before, is people on the right so quickly turning on significant, I think, cultural voices. And Jordan Peterson is one of those guys that people have turned on. You know, and he's frequently maligned, mocked because he struggled with substance abuse, saying he fell off, and I believe largely because he supports Israel. That's why I think most people dislike him at this point in time. But I'm not one of those people. I like Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson is a net positive for conservatism. Now, he didn't always start outright as a Christian or a believer. He's somebody that is exploring faith, and he's somebody that his lectures on faith are better than a lot of what actual Christians produce. You know, his series on Genesis and Exodus, they're very good, very thought-provoking. You know, and he tackles the Bible in a way that most people don't. They don't tackle it from a psychological perspective, which is what he does. Now, I don't think he claims to be a theologian, okay? I don't think that's what he claims to be. I think he's generally a man that's searching for the truth, and he has found that truth in Jesus Christ, and he's he's trying to explain that truth. And in this, he seems to have a little bit of difficulty with that, which we'll explore in one additional video that is making the rounds of him. Actually, not struggling to explain the faith, but I think asking a question that I think is a pretty significant question. So let me get this clip pulled up, and then we will talk about it.
Do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean when you say you believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if you believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay. So then,
how would you define belief? Something you say?
Well, can I explain? Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like, I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your life.
Don't be so sure.
I'm kind of with Jordan here. No, I would not. I wouldn't. And that type of mentality is the exact mentality that gets you to go along with the whims of a tyrant, trying to lie to save yourself. Even a tiny lie can cost you your soul. So no, I wouldn't lie about anything. Or I aim not to. That is the goal. Now, what would I do in a stressful situation where my life is on the line? I'd like to think that I would be a good man and stand by the truth no matter what. I haven't been in that position, but that's what I would like to believe about myself. And the way that I know I most likely would make that choice is because I don't make a practice of lying in my daily life. I don't lie about small things to my wife. I don't lie about small things to my friends. I aim to be somebody that tells the truth no matter what. That's my goal. Anyway.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
No, can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them, would you lie to like the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. It's a hypothetical, and it's not answerable. Hypotheticals? No, I can't answer a hypothetical like that because it's far.
Did you
Don't play games.
I'm not playing games. I'm just asking if you ate it.
I just told you I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have and you want to protect them.
I think you should just give up on that line of questioning.
But like, okay, again, you're not answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save someone's life.
I'm answering it in a manner you don't find acceptable.
Obviously, because I care about truth.
I wouldn't be in that scenario.
Obviously, right? Logically, because that's already happened. Like that's in the past. You don't have a time.
So I get it. This is another example of people asking, I would say bad faith questions, trying to get him to lie. I've encountered some similar questions like this where people are asking me personally in what areas I've sinned, and it's actually not they don't actually care. They're just doing it to get one over on you. It's a gotcha thing. It's not actually a sincere question. So I actually respect Jordan's answer. Yeah, I that's probably not very popular, but I respect it, because he's not being stuck in this binary where, it's either you hide Jews or, you give them up. He's suggested that there was probably, very likely, a lot of situations leading up to that moment, missteps, shortcomings that you made to find yourself in that precarious situation. And I think, if if you asked, I think a more fitting question for the state of our country, would you lie to protect illegals? My answer is very clear: no. Let them get deported. Yeah, let them get deported. I'm not gonna lie for them, and I'm gonna try to not lie as much as humanly possible. I do think, though, there is an interesting question to explore when it comes to lying biblically. I think there's a conversation to be had about using deception. Generally, I think it's wrong, but there are examples in the Bible where people use deception and it's advantageous for them, and that's a very strange thing to me. All right, and I haven't. Obviously, I know that God is always good, that everything God does is good, but humans sometimes don't do good things, and despite that, God still blesses them. There's like Rahab and the spies, deceiving to protect the Israelites. There's examples of Joseph and, I believe it's either Isaac or Jacob, one of them lying about their wives, and then they end up getting increased cattle as a result of their deception. Very, situations in the Bible that make you go, why did that happen? And it's one of those things that I have not arrived at a concrete answer. It's something that I'm still exploring, because we do know that lying is bad. However, is the preservation of life, does that take precedence over the lie? I think there's an argument that could be made or explored. Or maybe there's just some insight that I don't have yet, but it's something that I'm sincerely seeking out, because I think it's a good question. Now, I don't think Jordan could have answered that question really any way that this person is going to find satisfactory. I don't think that, especially when you're dealing with an atheist. Okay, they're not there because they care about the truth. All right, I do not believe that. I do not believe atheists are going on Jubilee to debate Christians because they genuinely have a desire for truth. Because here are some questions to know if you're talking to a good faith atheist. Okay, here are the questions. All right, one: if if everything about Jesus Christ is true, if the Bible and everything written in it is true, would you follow him? Just that question alone. If everything I tell you is true, would you follow him? If the answer is yes, then the next question is, okay, would you be willing to obey everything that he's telling you? And usually they're not going to answer yes to those questions, because they don't actually care about the truth. They don't. They care about views. They care about trying to own the Christian. They don't sincerely care about the truth. And that's why, too, atheists, unbelievers are referred to as fools in the Bible. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. That is something a fool says. And I'm not about engaging with fools. I'm not about throwing my pearls to swine. I want, personally, to engage with people who sincerely want to hear what I say, people who are acting in good faith. Those are the people that I want to engage with. Those are the people that I want to talk to. People that have a genuine desire and yearning for the truth. And also, by the way, those are the people that Jesus prioritized. See, Jesus doesn't go chasing after people that don't want to hear what he has to say. You don't actually see a single example of him chasing people down to accept his message. You know, when he's sending the disciples out to go door to door to share the gospel, he says that if they don't receive what you say, shake the dust off your shoulders and keep it moving, or your feet, and keep it moving. Don't waste your time. Keep going. You know, and over again, we read throughout the Gospels, whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. Because Jesus is looking for people that are actively listening, that actively want to hear what he has to say, that are genuinely desiring to walk in the truth. So I don't think this guy was going to engage with Peterson in good faith. I haven't watched the full video yet, so I've just seen a couple of these clips. It's like about an hour and 30 minutes. I'll probably try to give it a watch in the next couple of days and have more concrete views on this. But the overarching thing that really bothers me about particularly the right-wing movement, like I get atheists, you know, disliking Jordan Peterson, but the right-wingers, man, it's like they completely forget what a net positive he has been on the lives of men. I mean, men literally going through a downward spiral, and his book kind of helping pull them out of this dark moment in their life and giving them some direction. I think that's a good thing, you know, and we can maybe not agree with Peterson on Israel. I don't. While also still respecting the things that he has done to better the lives of men. He's still very influential. People pay money to go see this guy on tour when he tours around the country. And I think, you know, one of the things that brought me a lot of joy last year, whenever I first saw that clip, was knowing that his journey is leading him right to the heart of God. And we should pray for Peterson. And hopefully we should pray for some of these atheists. Maybe they did get a chance to hear some truth, and maybe it'll cause them to think. Lord only knows. I hope so, though. Okay. So speaking of celebrities, we have this from Protegia. Jesus Christ that can't handle the bold, vivid, psychedelic miracle of demons, and angels that move among you now. The limitless miracles of the quantum world can be sucked into you in a Holy Spirit revival. Jesus Christ that can't handle the bold, vivid, psychedelic miracle of demons and angels. I don't get what that is, but we're going to watch this video and
there's only one song for me now, the song that appears in the midway of the Bible, that Bible that starts with a divine and beautiful marriage, that Bible that ends with another beautiful marriage, that has Song of Songs, that love song between us and the Lord. I was told, and I feel it real strong, we don't meekly and gently pursue him no more. We devour and gorge on the communion. We no longer lightly utter his name, but we shout it and we scream it and we feel it, and we feel its great power. No longer in the secular world do we bow down and present them an anemic and pale Jesus Christ that can't handle the bold, vivid, psychedelic miracle of demons and angels that move among you.
Hold on, let me just back up real quick.
An anemic and pale Jesus Christ that can't handle the bold, vivid, psychedelic miracle of demons and angels that move among you now. The limitless miracles of the quantum world can be sucked into you in a Holy Spirit revival. The blood may provide some connection between the material and the ethereal, but for a moment I can't forget that it's a supernatural belief system that I have. And in the air, the pneuma, the Holy Spirit. I feel it. I feel.
I don't really. I can't. I kind of just don't know what he's saying. The secular world. Do we bow down and present them an anemic and pale Jesus Christ? Oh, he's not saying. So he's not saying. Yeah, this is misleading. He's not saying that Jesus Christ is. He's saying that we don't do that. His great power. No longer in the secular world do we bow down and present them an anemic Christ that can't handle the vivid, bold, psychedelic miracle of demons and angels that move among you. So maybe, I mean, I don't really know. My best interpretation is that he's trying to say that that's not the Jesus Christ we should be presenting to people. At least that's what I'm getting from that. Maybe I'm hearing that wrong. Now, Brand is a little bit, new agey, and he's a new believer. And I don't think new believers should be doing what he's doing right now, putting himself in a position where he's teaching. Although I do admire the zeal of new believers and their desire to share the gospel. I get that. And I think testimony is probably one of the most beneficial things that you could do, is just sharing your testimony. I can't really comment one way or the other what he's doing here because I don't really know. But if he's presenting Jesus Christ as somebody that isn't those things, yeah, well, that's true. He's an anemic and psychedelic and any of those things that he is listing. So that's at least my best good faith interpretation of what Brand is saying. But he has been somebody that I think has proven that if he is in error, if he is not saying something that is true, that he will course correct. That seems to be something that he does. When he got called out for the tarot cards, he stopped doing that and made a video basically saying as much. So I don't think he's somebody that is above reproach. I do think he's somebody that's a little, overzealous and just needs somebody that's a little bit more mature in their faith to kind of guide him, walk him, and teach him the way. That's what I think. So we'll see, though. Brand is somebody that I think is developing and learning and growing. Still a baby Christian, in my opinion. I'm not going to be overly critical of the guy. I'll give him, a couple more years and see how he changes. All right. So another kind of tragic thing. I don't want to pretend like I followed this guy at all. I've seen him though. And it's always sad to me when you hear of people in ministries, especially people who are in positions of leadership, failing sexually and committing adultery. That's something that I just think is heartbreaking, genuinely. So there's this guy named K-Dub True. I've seen him around on Twitter before. Evidently, he has committed adultery, and at first he repented. He confessed his sins that he committed to end his relationship with the woman that he was having an affair with, and that he blocked her phone call. However, he, contacted this woman again and started chatting with her again, and basically it was committing adultery. And that to me is upsetting because this guy, he has a pretty decent following here on Twitter, but he has a pretty massive YouTube channel, at least, or a pretty big YouTube channel, at least in comparison to me. All right. So 87,000 followers, and these micro influencers or small influencers, I think there's still people that are demonstrating a standard for Christianity. and they are claiming to be ambassadors, and they are living in a way that is unchristlike. And we have this massive problem in the church with adultery. And I think people have forgotten just how significant adultery is. It's one of the reasons Jesus Christ had to die. I don't think a lot of people grasp that. I don't think they get it. So just to paint you a picture real quick, Jesus Christ, or God, enters into a relationship with Israel. He makes a covenant with Israel. Basically, God says, if you do this, this will happen. If you don't, this will happen. Israel does not honor the covenant that they made with God. They do not honor the old covenant. And they end up breaking God's commandments. They end up departing from the way. They end up practicing lawlessness, practicing sin. They end up committing adultery. So God ends up divorcing Israel. Now, one of the laws in the Bible regarding adultery is that the only way for you to, I guess, re-enter, or a widow is to remarry, or the only way you're able to get remarried in the Bible essentially is if the bridegroom dies, if you become like a widow. And that's exactly how God allows us to re-enter into covenant with him. He dies, and now we can re-enter into covenant with God, which is pretty cool, even though we had committed adultery. So he made a way for us when there was no way, and that is profound. And I think we need to start looking at our marriages as reflections of this union, earthly reflections. And when you're committing adultery and these very seriously grave sins, you're robbing people of the beautiful picture that we should be reflecting back to the world of who Jesus Christ is. You're betraying your spouse. If you have children, you're betraying your children. And you're betraying the viewers, the people that look to you for guidance, for answers. And I've just seen this pattern, man. And men gotta develop the spirit of self-control. And if you don't have self-control, then you have zero business being in ministry. If you don't have self-control, you don't have the Holy Spirit. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. So if you lack self-control, then it stands to reason that you don't have the Holy Spirit. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for you, up for her. And in the same way, wives, love your husbands and respect them. That's huge. It's vital. And it's a commandment. You are commanded to respect your husbands. And I'm not saying like this to be like domineering, but that's literally just what the Bible says. And we're supposed to do what the Bible says. And a lot of people try to add like caveats to that. Well, I'll respect my husband if he does this. No, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't place a condition on your respect for your husband. It doesn't. You should just respect his position as your husband. I think it's a good thing. And husbands, there's not a condition on you loving your wives. You just love her. No matter what. You commit to loving her with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul. All right. I saw this little snippet from this article by a guy named Michael Foster, and I just wanted to give it a read because it seems like a pretty good article. And the little bit of the paragraph that I read, which I'll read to you, I think seems good. For years now, I've watched men in the church try to gain respect by being nice and fail miserably. They serve, they sacrifice, they bend over backward to please everyone around them, especially their wives. But it doesn't lead to the life they expected. Instead of respect, they get resentment. Instead of admiration, they get indifference. They're overlooked, not honored. Their efforts go unnoticed. Their sacrifice unappreciated. These so called nice guys, and understanding what drives them is key to understanding why so many Christian men feel lost, ineffective, and ashamed. Why men must abandon the false gospel of nice guyism. Yeah, I think this is something that I've talked about quite a lot. And there is this expectation that we have to be nice no matter the circumstance, that we have to be happy, they have to turn the other cheek, and that gives people essentially permission to walk all over us. And I don't think that is what Jesus expects. I don't think he expects us to be doormats, to be people that aren't taken seriously, to be people that are outright disrespected. I don't think that's what Jesus meant when turn the other cheek. I don't. So let's see what he has to say. For years, I've watched men in the church try to gain respect. Blah, blah. I read this before. Indifference, ineffective, ashamed. One of the most helpful frameworks I've come across for diagnosing this, Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy, while it was written for a Christian audience, it's clear-eyed about what's going on in men's lives. Sorry. Glover describes what he calls nice guy syndrome, a way of living where a man believes, if I'm good, people will love me, meet my needs, and life will go smoothly. It's a covert contract, one that only exists in his mind, and no one else agreed to it. This leads him to perform. He tries to do what he thinks others want. That's always too a recipe for disaster. Don't try to do what you think others want. One, just simply ask people what they need and do that. And don't compromise or change who you are to simply appease the needs of other people. I've seen too many people in the church do that. I myself, when I worked for the church, I did that. Or I was trying to do that. I was trying to be the person they wanted me for this role. And it just wasn't me. It didn't work, and it created internal chaos. So I don't think that that is good for men at all. He hides anything unpleasant. He avoids conflict. He anticipates needs without being asked, expecting others to do the same for him. He believes that if he does everything right, life will finally work. He'll get the girl. He'll earn the respect. He'll find peace. But none of that happens, and he becomes bitter. This kind of man is everywhere in the church. He often becomes a servant leader in the worst possible sense, deferential, passive, afraid to take initiative. He thinks leadership means laying down, not holding up. He gives and gives, but is not a gift. It's a transaction. He hopes his sacrifice will be repaid. When it's not, he just feels exhausted. He feels betrayed. Nice guys don't serve out of strength. They serve out of emptiness. They're trying to earn what they believe they lack: approval, affection, significance. Glover traces this to what he calls toxic shame. Not the conviction of sin, but the belief that being a man is itself wrong, that masculinity itself is inherently corrupt and dangerous. So basically, he has pegged most male feminists. This belief didn't come from nowhere. For decades now, we've been raising boys to despise their nature. We tell them to sit still, speak softly, be sensitive, suppress aggression, and emote more. In short, we train them to be more like girls. Gloria Steinem famously said, "We should raise our sons more like daughters," and the culture obeyed. Yeah. If you can't recognize how that is a huge mistake, then you're part of the problem. Boys are not girls. They can never be girls. And they never will be girls. And because we have a society and a culture that is largely structured around raising girls, it has been disastrous for our boys. Nowhere in this is more obvious than in public education, where for 13 formative years, boys are immersed in a system designed by women, staffed mostly by women, and optimized for girls. Masculine traits, risk-taking, roughhousing, competitiveness are pathologized. Boys learn early in their that their instincts are bad, that manhood is a problem, that strength must be tamed, and then they carry that shame into adulthood. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've frequently talked about this notion that young boys are often diagnosed with ADHD, and it's a diagnosis that is overwhelmingly ascribed to young boys. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that most boys who are diagnosed with ADHD after being observed to be, energetic and talkative and can't pay attention. Well, that's just called being a boy. And that's not a mental illness. That's not a problem. That's just being a boy. The problem is that we are trying to put boys in a situation that is not conducive to who they are. It just isn't. The classroom setting is not a setting that is ideal for boys. No outlet, no medium to get out their energy. To build something with their hands. Maybe you'll get a semester or two where you get to, an elective where you get to be in, woodworking class, or maybe you get the opportunity when you're 16. But I think from a young age, boys should have the outlet of being able to create things with their hands. And sports and physical activity should be something that happens every single day. Nobody can sit in a desk for 8 hours a day and not be fidgety, all right? I'm a grown adult. I can't do that. All right. And many of them find their way into churches where male virtue is modeled after a distorted picture of Jesus, one that emphasizes meekness and mildness while stripping them of their true strength. And one thing I do want to hit on here is that meekness does not mean weakness, okay? That is a common misconception. Meekness means power reserved or power restrained. So Jesus, when he demonstrated meekness, doesn't mean that he was acting weakly. It's that he was using his power at appropriate times. He was having the ability to destroy and not doing it. A good example, nerdy example, but good example. It's like when Goku is fighting Frieza. Goku, Frieza gets cut in half, and Goku could kill Frieza, but he demonstrates meekness. He doesn't do it. That is until Frieza tries to, kill him, blast him from, behind, and then Goku does what he needs to do. But originally he demonstrated meekness. He reserved the power, even though he could have used it in that moment to defeat Frieza. There's my nerdy analogy. I thought it worked pretty well. All right, so in this vision, meekness becomes passivity and kindness becomes niceness. But the real Jesus was meek and mighty, kind and commanding, full of grace and truth, not neutered of initiative, boldness, or authority. So they try harder. They try to be nice. They volunteer more. They lead by constantly deferring to their wives. They think the sanctification process, the sanctification requires the death of their masculinity rather than the sanctification of it. But sacrifice is part of masculinity. You sacrifice for your mission, for your people, for your God. What you don't sacrifice is masculinity itself. Yeah. They think being a good Christian means being a doormat with a Bible verse, and it doesn't work. Yes. The core problem is that their self-sacrifice is rooted in falsehood. It's not motivated by strength or obedience to God. It's motivated by insecurity and fear. It's a performance designed to win approval, and that kind of sacrifice always backfires. It's manipulative, even if the man doesn't realize it. He's not giving freely, he's giving with strings attached. That's not how Christ gave himself. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, they are sacrificing masculinity itself by giving up these things that make us who we are, that are acquiescing to the whims of and demands of women. We are giving up essentially part of who we are. Recently, I saw, what was his name? Andrew Wilson. He was getting chewed up for the way that he was talking to some woman on the whatever podcast or a podcast. And there were a lot of Christians wagging their finger at Andrew Wilson, like, how dare he talk to her like that. And he was also getting railed because he wasn't able to open a pickle jar, and they were using that as a setup to dunk on him. Meanwhile, they said absolutely nothing, not a damn thing, about the radical leftist he was debating. They were more concerned about his tone or his inability to open a pickle jar in that moment than the radical feminist that supports every evil imaginable, just to dunk on this guy. And tone policing is one of those things that frequently happens with men. We got to watch our tone. We got to walk on Pringles. Be careful not to offend, instead of just being straightforward like most of us are or want to be. Now, I'm somebody that I try not to beat around the bush. I say what I think, and I mean what I say. Sometimes I say things that I probably shouldn't. Sometimes I say things and I regret them later because I realize, maybe I could have been a little bit more tactful about that. But what I will not do is not say what I believe to be true in an effort to save face with somebody else. What I won't do is soften the truth to make it more palatable to women because they don't like the way that I talk. One, my audience isn't my target audience isn't women. Now, not to say that I don't appreciate my female listeners, because I absolutely do. You guys are awesome. But my main audience is men. I speak largely about issues affecting men. I'm concerned mainly with men becoming men. That is something that is important to me because I see it as a massive problem. In my debate, my Jubilee debate, I was talking about the issue of misandry and what a problem it is. I brought up this exact same point about the public school system because it's an issue. And my claims of misandry were largely laughed at by liberals, downplayed, not taken seriously. Because anytime men talk about men's issues, it's treated like a joke. And it shouldn't be. Or in Andrew Wilson's case, you're tone policed by the way that you say it, regardless of whether or not what you say is actually true. Jesus laid down his life in obedience to the Father. He was not manipulated into it. He did not do it because the church asked him. He did it because he was fulfilling a plan formed before the foundation of the world. He went to the cross not to please the church, but to glorify the Father and redeem his bride. He took action. He led. He bled. He rose again. He did it all from the position of abundance, not need. His sacrifice wasn't the fruit of insecurity. It was the fruit of mission. He had what he needed. He didn't need what we had. He wasn't trying to get something from us. He was trying to give. He was giving everything to us. So beautiful. This is the essential difference between nice guys and godly men. Nice guys serve to be filled. Godly men serve because they are full. Nice guys are needy. Godly men are generous. Nice guys give because they're desperate for approval. Godly men give because they know that they're already approved. Yeah, we're giving out of the abundance. We're giving out of our knowing our position, knowing who we are, knowing what we have to bring to the table, not expecting. So I don't serve, and I've never served expecting something in return out of it. I have served because it's the right thing to do. I've served because I want to help the needs of my community. I served because I saw that there was a problem and I wanted to help be the solution. Not so that people like me. I don't care if people like me. I just care about doing what is right. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need people, giving me pats on the back. I don't need any of that. All I need to do is know is that what I'm doing is unto the Lord. So the root issue here is one of control, specifically where a man believes control lies in his life. Psychologists call this the locus of control. A man with an internal locus believes his choice, his action, and his mindset, these determine the outcome. A man with an external locus believes it's fate, luck, other people, systemic obstacles, things beyond his control. And that's another thing. It's another problem. Some of them, in my opinion, some of the most pathetic kinds of men imaginable are men that don't take any personal responsibility. If you want to repel women, be somebody that doesn't take responsibility for anything. It is one of the saddest, most pathetic things that a man can do. A real man, even despite challenges, despite impossible odds, takes risks. He rises to the occasion. He takes responsibility for his lot in life, no matter what happens. He's committed to serving the Lord. Hold on one second. I heard something else. I just want to check what that was. Give me a second. I have no idea what that was. It sounded like tapping on my window. So, a little weird. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. Anyway, real men take responsibility. They don't blame other people for their problems. They own their problems. If I encounter a series of bad things, let's say tomorrow I lose my job, that would suck. And, my wife, I lose my wife in tragedy, and I'm diagnosed with cancer. Like if I have all these bad things in the world, it would be very easy for me to blame external factors. My job, it's my job's fault. No, I wouldn't do that. I would have to pick myself up, take responsibility for what I can do in those moments, and work towards something better, even if it seems far out of my reach. But a lot of men want to blame their lot on life, especially with the dating market. You don't know women. You don't know what it's like, bro. The dating scene's really bad. Yeah, I get it. It's bad, sure, But what are you going to do about it? You're going to cry about it? You're going to whine about it? You're going to blame all the plights of man on women? Or are you going to take responsibility and start changing your life? making better decisions, trying to become a better man. Those are all things that you can do that are totally divorced from whatever problems are occurring with women. All right. Nice guys almost always have external locus. Their entire worldview is built around the idea that someone else is responsible for their happiness. Yeah. That's why they feel like victims. That's why they're constantly frustrated. That's why they think if they just please everyone, things will finally go their way. But that day never comes. Scripture blows this mindset apart. Proverbs teaches that a man's life reflects his heart. His outer world mirrors his inner world. His fruit comes from his roots. And if his house is wrecked, his finances are a mess, and his health is in decline, his relationships are shallow, the first place he needs to look is in the mirror. Yeah. Yeah, and this is why men like Jordan Peterson, by the way, are so significant. Because he teaches men responsibility. He teaches men to take back control of their lives by doing simple things like making your bed, taking on responsibility. Yes, there are always other factors, but the man is the main one. That's the default assumption scripture teaches. Not that everything is his fault, but that he is responsible. And if he takes responsibility, God will meet him. God, that is good. Yeah. If you take responsibility, God will meet you. This brings us to the concept of the male burden of performances. Simply put, men are judged by what they do. They are expected to build, to protect, to provide, to lead. That's not a social construct, that's Genesis. Adam was given a mission before he was given a wife. Dominion is in the male DNA. We are made to work. We are made to act. That's why passivity is so soul killing. That's why unemployment crushes men. That's why retirement often leads to depression. A man without a mission is like a sword left in its sheath, unused, dull, and wasting away. That's good, man. Yeah, I agree. And that's why too, I don't ever plan to retire. Retiring is not an option for me. I will never retire. I will retire when I am physically no longer capable of working. That is when I will retire. Or my children force me to. They're like, "Grandpa, you can't be screaming at the libs. You're too old for that." That's when I'll retire. Or when I go on long Alzheimer's rants. That's when I'll retire. But even then, if I were to retire, I'd be actively involved in ministry in some capacity, actively involved in the lives of my grandkids or my children's children's children, something. I don't want to be idle. I want to create something with my hands. That's why I love doing this so much. It's an opportunity for me to create something with my hands. And maybe not physical, but building, writing out stories, writing out streams, planning, creating the thumbnails, editing the videos, doing all that. I'm creating something, and that's the reason why I appreciate writing. I'm creating something. So this is why women are attracted to competence, to strength, to leadership, to performance. It's not shallow. It's built into them. Just as men are drawn to beauty and warmth and receptivity, women are drawn to a man who can get things done, who has direction, who doesn't need her to be his emotional clutch. I had spoken about this recently, but when I married my wife, I didn't have anything. I had nothing. I didn't even have a job. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a large bank account. All right. I had a car and as much stuff as I could fit into my trunk. That was it. And she married me anyway because I did have something that she recognized. I had drive. I had mission. I had tenacity. I had this this mentality that I will not give up no matter what. I had that. So when we moved to Tulsa, right after we got married, both no jobs, with only $1,000 in the bank account, I said, no, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to apply to every single job possible, and we're going to make this work. And I did just that. And a couple weeks after getting there, I got my first job. Then I got a second job. Then I worked overtime. Then I dropped that other job. And then I got promoted. And then I always had mission, though. It was always clear to me what I had to do as a man. It was always clear to me that I had to be a provider, that I had this responsibility, that God entrusted my wife to me, and I'm going to do everything in my power to provide for her, to show up for her, to be the person I know she believes I can be. That's what I've done. And since then, just about every single thing that I've committed myself to doing, and obviously that I believe the Lord has called me to do, I've accomplished. There are still, some big things that I want to do. But in each season where I feel the tugging of God for me to go on a mission, to do what I set out to do, He meets me. I mean, just me being in this Rumble Small Creator Program, maybe it's not that big of a deal to some of you guys, but I felt like God had told me to do this. There's a lot of work that I didn't have as much time as I had hoped. I felt the tugging. There's a mission. Do it. Show up every day. That's your responsibility. Anyway. Who doesn't need her? When a man tries to win a woman's heart through neediness, through niceness, he repels her. She may not even know why, but she'll feel it. She'll feel like she's the one carrying the relationship. She'll feel like she's being led by a limp handshake, and that breeds contempt. Yeah, there's nothing more pitiful than a man that doesn't take ownership in the relationship, that doesn't lead the relationship. It's hard for a woman to respect a man like that. Now, it doesn't mean that she should not respect you, but it is difficult for a woman to respect you. So what's the way forward? First, we must abandon the false gospel of nice guyism. You don't need to earn love through performance. You don't need to beg for scraps of approval. You already have the love of the Father. You are a son. You are an heir. You are accepted. Second, you must embrace your design. You are made to be a man. That's not a flaw, that's a feature. You are built for action, built to lead, built to build. Yes, the fall makes it harder. Yes, the ground resists you. Yes, the curse presses down, but your design is good. Yeah, and so many men need to hear that. Your design, how God made you, is good. It is beautiful. It is significant. You were made to conquer this world. You were made to build things with your hands. You were made to protect. You were made to lead. You were made to serve. You were made to make this world a better place. That is what you were made to do. That is what you were designed to do. Don't let the world beat it out of you. Don't let the world make you effeminate. Don't let the world make you homosexual. Don't let the world deceive you into being something you're not. Third, you must live mission first. Christ came to do the will of the Father, and so must you. The mission gives you meaning to your work, your sacrifice, and your relationships. It frees you from people pleasing because your eyes are fixed on the throne, not the crowd. Finally, you must believe that your these stupid ads. That your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Not every effort will be rewarded in this life, but all of it matters. Even the mundane, even the overlooked, even the painful, whatever you do, do it heartily as for the Lord and not for men. This is the abundance mindset. That is freedom. this is the way of Christ. It's not easy, but it is light. It's not safe, but it is good. I like that Chronicles of Narnia quote. And it leads to real joy, real peace, and real masculinity. Stop being nice, start being good, and live like it's good to be a man. Well written, Michael Foster. Well written. Much respect. I got this Christian Hope edit I want to play. I think it's a good way to end this segment.
Satan will not attack Muhammad because he won him long time ago. Satan will not go after Buddha because he won him long ago. Satan will not go after Krishna because he won him and the 300 million gods long ago. Satan was overcome by one and was crushed on Calvary. His name is Jesus. And everyone who professes and confesses Jesus Christ will be attacked. Do not be afraid. Satan will not attack Muhammad because he won him long time ago. Satan will not
Is
go.
he just playing that over and over again? I listened to the first portion of that. Anyway, very good though. Well, he's right. You know, he won them over a long time ago, and don't let him win you over. Don't let him rob you of your identity. And two, don't expect that this life is going to be easy, okay? Nothing worth having comes easy. Life is challenging. Life is difficult. It can be hard. It can be exhausting. It can be perilous. But it's also an adventure, and it can be wonderful and beautiful. And something you just thank God for every single day. Another helpful tip is practicing gratitude. You know, today I was thinking, man, I'm just super grateful for my wife. I am genuinely appreciative of the woman that God has given me. Genuinely. Just a good woman, a woman of the highest caliber. And I appreciate that. And those moments when they, you know, when I have good moments and when I have moments with my wife, it's not lost on me that I've been giving something beautiful. I have, and I'm grateful to God for it. All right, let's get into our next story. We're going to be playing this clip by, oh, hold on a second. I need to fix something because I'm not playing this clip that I have of Megan Fox because it's just inappropriate unless I need an edit for it, but I don't think I have the edit. Dang it. Oh wait, maybe this is it. Yeah, I have the edit.
Noah started wearing dresses when Noah was about 2.
Resize this. Yeah, I had to edit the edit because I'm not about showing mad cleavage if I can help it, and I can definitely help it in this situation. One second here, just make sure the audio works. Okay, we're good. All right, we'll play this clip and then we'll talk about Megan Fox and her 3 transgender kids.
Started wearing dresses when Noah was about 2. And I bought a bunch of books that sort of address these things, that address a full spectrum of like what this is. And some of the books are about written by transgender children. Some of the books are just about how you can be a boy and wear a dress, like you can express yourself through your clothing however you want. That doesn't even have to have anything to do with your sexuality. So from the time they were very young, I've incorporated those things into their daily lives so that nobody feels like they are weird or strange or different. I can't control the way other people react to my children. I can't control the things.
You can control how your children are perceived, though, largely by just not putting them in dresses.
that other children that they go to school with have been taught and then repeat to them. So
you can control how your kids dress when they go to school and prevent them from being needlessly bullied. Like, that is something that you are entirely inviting on your children. It is.
that has been a journey.
All right, so a couple things to kind of unpack here. One, Megan Fox has multiple trans kids. Multiple effeminate kids. So this is from American AF. All three of Megan Fox's sons are transgender. What are the odds of this happening? 1, 2, 3. And look, they're all appear to be boys. He's kind of dressed fine. But they all have long hair. Not to say that's inherently feminine, but I suspect they're not having long hair because Megan Fox thinks long hair is cool. I suspect it's probably because she's confusing her children about who they are. But this kid, excuse me. This kid is definitely effeminate. And the sad thing is that she groomed her children. This was not something that they decided on their own. She said her child was 2 years old when she started to explore this with them. 2 years old. Okay? 2. I have a 2-year-old. I have a little bit of insight onto how 2-year-olds behave, okay? And my 2-year-old doesn't even understand the concept of gender. She doesn't understand what a boy is or a girl is. Only that mommy and daddy look a little bit differently. Daddy has a beard on his face. Mommy has long flowy hair, and girls wear pink. She sees that because her sister loves wearing pink. Her mom loves wearing pink flowery things, and she's already naturally gravitating toward that stuff. She requires my guidance and my direction, and I would not be guiding or directing my daughter in a way that's conducive to who she is by exposing her to this gender madness. I just flat out wouldn't. She's also showing her books written by trans kids. Yes, because kids have a lot of great insight into what it means to be trans when they themselves don't even fully recognize it themselves, and when they themselves are probably indoctrinated themselves. Real stellar parenting. Our job as parents is to guide our kids in what is true. And Megan Fox has intentionally, from the point her children were very young, sowed gender confusion into their lives by exposing them to trans propaganda because she views her children as accessories and not actual human beings. And then she wants to decry how others might respond when she has intentionally made her kids' lives worse. This would be like, and not that I condone like mistreating kids, all right? I definitely don't. So hear me when I say I do not condone other kids mistreating kids, but I am also not naive to how kids are. They do not have the same filter that adults do. They do not have the same self-control that adults do, or the maturity. And they rightly identify that, boys wearing women's clothes is weird. And some boys will rightly respond to that weirdness by identifying that it's weird. And that is an entirely preventable thing if you're a parent that just dresses your son in normal clothes. But instead, you invite the bullying. You invite the problems. You invite the mockery. You invite your son's own demise. Because you push this on them, not them. There's no way in hell 3 kids are waking up one day and deciding that they're transgender. No, this was intentional. The odds of that happening are so minute, so obscure that it is impossible for them to have ever arrived at a conclusion on their own. No, they were coaxed, coerced, misled, and guided into confusion that, by the way, if she doesn't stop with this trajectory, will result in irreparable damage to her boys. And this is I'm going to show you just a sad reality of what she's intentionally putting her kids through. So this is a post. It's a pretty view. And then Melanie Mack shared on this, his last post before taking his own life at just 17 years old. This is what transgender ideology does to our youth. It's demonic. Stop enabling this. Prayers for his loved ones during this tragic time. It is sad. Dang, that's sad. And people will blame, right wingers for, coming out against transgenderism. But why would we actively support something we know increases a person's rate of suicide? Why would we encourage that? Why would we ever get behind something like that? How could we? And then you think we're crazy for rejecting that? Do you think we're the bad guys? No. No, not by a long shot. We're not the villains in this story. We're the people that actively care about these individuals, that we don't want them to be misled down a path of destruction. And if you're somebody who subscribes to this idea that men can be women and women can be men, you are hopelessly deluded. And the only hope you actually have is Jesus Christ to break you free from the madness. So while we're on this topic, because the trans, they haven't gone away yet. They're still loud and proud, and not the good kind of proud. So we have this video brought to us by Colin Rugg. Transgender activists have unveiled a massive trans flag at Yosemite National Park to teach President Trump a lesson. The queers and transgenders want the world to know that being transgender is natural. The flag was hung a whopping 1,500 feet up the rock and spanned 55 feet wide and 35 feet tall. Trans is natural. The Trump administration and transphobes would love to have you believe that being trans is unnatural. Actually, yes.
Some carry hate. We carry the largest trans pride flag to ever be flown in a national park and unfurled it on the side of El Cap to prove a point, that trans is natural. The Trump administration and transphobes would love to have you believe that being trans is unnatural, but species that can transition sexes can be found on every continent and in every ocean on planet Earth. So call it a protest, call it a celebration. We are bringing elevation to liberation. They try to erase us from government websites and education systems and libraries. So we raise this flag higher than ever before so every trans person knows that they have people that love them in their corner. The people united will never be defeated. Some carry...
It would be a real shame if someone climbed up that mountain and accidentally, like, just started a fire over there, and it just happened to catch that entire demonic trans flag on fire. That would be terrible. It'd be a real tragedy. Don't want anyone to do it, but if it does happen, okay. Uh, Natural. Yes. The Trump administration does want you to believe that being trans is unnatural because it is unnatural. Everything about it is unnatural. The does what strikes you about anything about this guy being natural? The long hair, do you think that's natural? The clown makeup, do you think that's natural? And the fake whatever body parts he has on him, do you think that's natural too? No, it's inherently unnatural because it is disordered. It is demonic. I love how he brings up species that are trans or trans. So what? We're not animals or insects, buddy. We're human beings. There are also species of insects that eat the heads off of their, male counterparts. Dogs are nefarious for sniffing other dogs' butts. We don't do that. Maybe they do, but we don't do that because it's disgusting. So there's lots of things that animals do naturally that if humans were to do them is absolutely disgusting and horrendous. So that's not a flex. That's not something that helps you. That's not something that helps you prove your point. It just makes your point even more invalid. Yeah, we shouldn't be modeling our behavior off of animals. All right, we are sentient beings. We have consciousness. We can think, we can love, we can reason. We can use tools. Now, yeah, there's some animals that can use tools, I get. But these are things that uniquely separate us from animals. All right. This one's by Libs of TikTok. This dude destroyed his whole family to live out his mentally ill delusion. Very sad.
So the other day we were talking to our 7-year-old and just checking in with them, being like, how are you feeling about dad's transition these days? Do you have any questions? And my partner was so cute, was just like, how do you feel about the fact that like dad's a little pretty sometimes and adorable? And immediately, without missing a beat, my 7-year-old was just like, I'm just happy that dad gets to feel like themselves. The kids aren't confused. The kids are not confused.
Actually, they are confused because you're intentionally confusing them. And a 7-year-old might not understand how perverse and weird this is, but give it time. They'll come to recognize the truth. And they won't be saying that same thing when they're older. And all their friends are looking at them like, this is weird. This is weird. Your dad's weird. Are you okay? They'll start to recognize that it is sexually perverse and evil. At least that's my hope. Because the world is starting to return to saner times. And I think evidence of this is Jojo Siwa's transformation. So this is a montage that was put together by Oil London, I guess. And I just thought it was good. I'm glad she woke up, man. I am. I'm glad she jumped that trans ship and or that LGBTQ ship and became straight again and actually is in a relationship with a male. I'm so glad. I'm so glad she's abandoned that. Man, there's a lot more I can do right now, but I am running out of time and my wife is driving in the rain, so I want to check on her and make sure she's all right. So I am going to call it quits for the night. Officially on June 1st, we will start that new schedule because that's when the creator program officially starts. So we'll start streaming pretty much every night for 2 hours. Maybe Sunday will be the exception to that rule, but we will be streaming a lot. And I would love to hear from you. Ooh, I don't know if you guys heard that, but it's crazy here. So let me get everything kind of shut down before my power goes off or I get an electrical surge. Anyway, I hope you guys have a blessed night. Deuces.